welcome to a one-off episode for the Blood Angels Index. This is the Sons of Sanguinius. Obviously, recently got a buff in the most recent data slate, now getting twice the amount of additional strength on the charge. How are you feeling about Sons of Sanguinius, John?
Yeah, it's interesting because I've spent a lot of the last couple of months dabbling with
Mm,
Blood Angels concepts and stuff, often not in Sons of Sanguinius. So it's been interesting to kind of see if the changes make it justifiable to sort of not just be a default Space Marine player again with the flavour thrown into it. So yeah, it should be interesting.
yeah, the base Space Marine detachments are just so good, and they synergize really well with the Blood Angels units. However, I think there are a couple of things that this detachment does better than any other detachment. So let's get into that and sort of talk about what we have got going. So, first of all, Oath of Moment. You know it, you love it. In your command phase, you pick one enemy unit, your entire army rerolls to hit against that unit. Nice and simple, especially with the ability to get, let's say, lethal hits. If you're running chaplains, it's quite powerful in this detachment. Then we've got the Red Thirst. This is the thing that makes the detachment tick, because the stratagems are pretty solid, but this is sort of, I think, what you're building around if you're playing it. Um, if one of your units charges until the end of the phase, +2 to your strength characteristic and +1 to the attacks characteristic. It's just solid. You're really sort of pumping that melee damage, which makes a lot of sense for Blood Angels. All right. Enhancements. Why don't you give us a run through on these ones?
Right, so the first one, Archangels Shard. So for 25 points, start is model only. The bearer's melee weapons have anti-chaos 5 up and the lance ability. So obviously anti-chaos 5 up means if you say triggering things like dev wounds or any sort of critical wounding against chaos units, 5s make it happen, which doubles the chance of some dev wounds, which is nothing to be shaken at. And then obviously lance is plus to wound, so again helps you if you're dealing with something a bit more chunky, even if it's not chaos. Just it's nice, right? That means your power fists are then on the charge, strength 10,
With
going
+1
into
to wound.
+1 to wound. That changes the numbers quite nicely. And suddenly you're looking at it and going, okay, a knight, a big knight, could be in trouble to just power fists, and no one expects that, and that's quite fun, I think. But it's a shame it's just the one guy. But still,
Yeah, it's pricey. It's definitely priced as if you're going to be getting both benefits.
yeah,
Lance is nice, but some detachments have put Lance on a full unit, for example,
yeah,
so that's a bit more limiting.
yeah,
The one thing that I don't think either of us have put in our list, but is something worth talking about, is you can put it on the captain that goes with a squad of assault intercessors,
yeah.
and the combination there is the assault intercessors, if they're fighting a unit on an objective, they get full rerolls to wound, which is very nice. The captain gets his once per game supercharge, +3 attacks and devastating wounds. So you run in a captain with a power fist. You pop the once per game buff. Suddenly 9 attacks on the charge, strength 10, AP 2, 2 damage, dev wounds, +1 to wound from lance. If you're lucky enough to be punching into chaos units, you'll be fishing for those 5s with your dev
Yes,
wounds. Yeah, I think that's it's interesting. 25 points feels a bit pricey though.
yeah. I think if it was 15, I'd probably consider it just for the half of it.
Yeah.
But that's, I guess, how it's pointed, right? It feels it.
Yeah, and I think if you're putting it in your list, you have to consider just the lance half of it, unless you're
Yeah.
playing in a weird meta where you're playing against chaos all of the time. Moving on.
Right, the next one, Artisan of War. So for 20 points, you get improve the armor penetration characteristic of the bearer's weapons by 1, and the bearer's save characteristic of 2+, which is it's nice. But again, it's just like I look at it and go, is the AP really gonna matter? I don't know. Like an AP3 power fist's nice, but all the
Hmm.
time you're hitting things that probably have an invuln or have a way to counter your improvement. So an armor of contempt, void armor equivalent of worsening your AP. So it just feels at times that you're spending 20 points for that one guy to then his entire squad gets nerfed because you've got it.
I like this less than I like the last one, and
Yeah.
I don't really like the last one.
It feels like one where I look at it and go, cool, that's cute, but I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm not
if you
sure
go
I'd
down the
find the
line of
points.
trying to make blender characters, which I don't think is necessarily worthwhile, This is the second choice in there if you're running 2 captains with the aforementioned Assault Intercessors.
Yeah.
But I'm not massively so.
Nah, it's a shame. But then Icon of the Angel, 10 points, so a bit of a bargain, potentially. Each time an enemy unit, excluding monsters and vehicles, with an engagement range of the bearer's unit are selected to fall back, models in that unit must take a desperate escape test as if their unit was battle shocked. When doing so, they do it at a -1 for each of those desperate escape tests. I like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those situations where people are like, right, I have to get this unit off out this combat because they need to not necessarily fight or anything like that or shoot or anything, but to go and maybe stand on an objective because it's end game scoring. If that's there, that's pivotal, and it's that sort of clincher moment where you're like, oh, this can really hurt. And at -1, even against say other Space Marines, they've got a roll of 7. That's not guaranteed. You like to think it's going to be on average, but there's times it doesn't happen, especially if it's multiple units. Like you just body 3 units, make it really awkward for them.
Key to note: this doesn't battle shock. It just makes your opponent take
As if they're battle shocked.
as
Yeah.
if they're battle shocked. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that does
Which is
mean if you
nice.
tie up a couple of vehicles and they want to roll back, 1 or 2, it's a bit
They're
of a
wasting
pain
time.
point there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lovely.
And then finally, the Visage of Death, which for 15 points, while an enemy unit, excluding monsters and vehicles, are within engagement range of the bearer's unit, halve the OC, so the objective control characteristic of that unit. I like this because if you put it on, say, a chaplain, you do suddenly have this brick of 11 bodies with 11 OC. Anything that's got better OC than you, you're just creating a problem for them. And I think that's nice because that's fixing a problem that you can often have in Space Marine armies where OC isn't a strength of the army unless you're taking the battle line units.
Yeah.
Or
the
a
obvious
vehicle.
the obvious sort of place this comes in is if you're charging into a wraith brick. Let's say you kill 1 or 2 wraiths, they kill 1 or 2 Death Company back.
Yeah.
Not much happens there, but instead of being OC, 13 as a full strength unit, suddenly they're down to OC 7 as a full strength unit, and you're down to 11 as a full strength unit because you've got the chaplain in there.
It's tasty.
So the few problems that you can't solve with gratuitous applications of violence, it helps resolve them, which I do quite like. All right. So what else have we got? We got some stratagems.
Right. So first, so we've split them again into battle tactics first, purely for the fact that obviously if you're taking a captain, you'll get to use one of them for free, or someone could actually make them more expensive if they've got a
This
Vex
does
style
feel like one of
ability.
the detachments where you may actually play into the captains if you're running those sort of murder captains, the Chaos Lords at home, as I was calling them earlier.
And even jump pack ones, we've got the option there to have them with your Assault Intercessors with jump packs. I'm not sure you would, but it's there. So first one, the same old one that we always see, Armor of Contempt. So it's to worsen the AP of an incoming target of so when you're being targeted in shooting or melee. So it's very handy, right?
Yeah, great. It's the
Just
one that you slam
always there.
more frequently than any of the strat.
And then the next one, Red Rampage, is in the fight phase. Want to start a unit from your army that has not been selected in the fight phase. They gain lance and lethal hits until the end of the phase, which is pretty nice. So quite often you'll find Death Company bricks will have Lamatis leading them. They get 4 rerolls to hit. He gives them lethal hits when he's leading them. Really useful. But then if you've got another brick with just a chaplain, just your basic bog standard kind of own brand chaplain, if you pop this on them, suddenly you've got 2 bricks of re-rolling to hit, lethal hits, big fists. That's terrifying, man. I love it. It's a real problem.
No, it's solid.
So,
I think, and it really just hammers home how bad the enhancement is that gives you, lance on a single model. Like it's fine, but I could just spend a CP, and we were talking about putting on a captain anyway, so you're just using that strat for free anyway because it's a battle tactic.
And then the last battle tactic is Aggressive Onslaught, which is in the fight phase again. I can see a theme a lot around the fight phase. It's 1 unit from your army. Before that unit consolidates, it can consolidate 6 inches instead of 3, as long as it ends its move with an engagement range of 1 or more enemy units, which I think is really quite nice. So there's often that time where they've screened by, like, they've made it so you can't then just kind of tow on to the next unit. Having that way of kind of guaranteeing that, or more importantly, take an objective. So like have that maybe that brick where you've got that enhancement that halves their OC. You end your combat, you pile onto the objective, you tag something that's not going to hurt you back, and you've just taken it off of them. And you could then blank their primary scoring for the next turn, which is
Yeah.
pretty nice, right?
It's good. I like it. I like it more when you get the pile in and consolidate.
Yeah,
Additional 3 inches. You only get the consolidate here, but as you said, it's quite freeing. You have to end in an engagement range of a unit, but there's nothing saying that you can't be in engagement range already. So you need to get some more models on a point. Oh, hey, I've got a 1 CP strat or a free strat if I'm running a captain
yeah.
potentially. I can just get onto the point and make sure that my plan to stop them from scoring points comes true. It's that extra reliability, which I
Yeah.
really like.
Right, and then the next one, Angel's Sacrifice. So for a CP in any phase, it's one character from your army that was just destroyed. You can use the stratagem, even though it was just destroyed, because obviously they've clarified as well in the recent commentary that you cannot target destroyed units. But this is one
Apart
of those
from when
ones
you
where it's
can.
this is the age old thing, right? Where it's like you can't until they tell you can. And then basically for this is until the end of the battle, each time a friendly Astartes unit makes an attack that targets the enemy unit that destroyed that character, you can reroll the hit roll. I don't think this is as useful as I'd like it to be, purely because a lot of the units I like in the Blood Angels kind of wheelhouse of their specific units have reroll to hit anyway.
So Death Company
Yeah,
reroll hits. Oath
yeah,
of Moment, you reroll hits.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's a shame. I like it. It's a very thematic thing, but I just don't see myself spending a CP for it unless it's say someone's killed a character and you're like, cool, you killed me with that big thing. I've now got a vehicle or something that I shouldn't maybe be relying on, and suddenly it gains that reroll. It's cool, but it's a very niche situation, right?
you can't even use it for free on the captain that was just precisioned out of a unit, like because it's not a
No.
battle tactic. So you don't even have that jank to sort of make me go,
No.
oh, hold on, yeah, there's something here. So yeah, this one's a miss for me, but everything else has been good so far.
Yeah. And then only in death does duty end. So this is the one stratagem that is 2 CP. This is in the fight phase after an enemy unit has selected its targets. One unit from your army that is selected by one or more of the attacking unit's attacks. Basically, until the end of the phase, each time a model in that unit is destroyed, if that model has not already fought this phase, um, the destroyed model can fight after the attacking model's unit has finished making all of its attacks, and then it's removed from play. So essentially, it fights on death as long as you've not already fought. It's handy. Um, I'm just there's situations where I think you get good trading out of it if it's say one of these big 11-man units of a character leading, say Death Company again. That it's getting that value where they've charged you. Go, this is unfortunate. I'm not going to get my value out of these guys, but then you're trading hopefully, and hopefully trading up, or at least getting your points back. And I think I could see myself doing it if I've got the CP spare. So that then probably requires you to be playing tactical as well, maybe just for
I
the
like
CP.
it. It's solid in the melee matchup if your opponent has some way of making you fight last, or if they also have good reach, good speed,
Yeah,
advance and charge, something like that. Just being able to go, okay, sucks that one of my units got charged, but you don't get to kill me for free.
yeah,
Especially if you're playing into Drakari or something that really want to punch and then get out of there. Being able to punish them for committing is very valuable. It is expensive at 2 CP, but it's also more reliable, so I think I prefer it that way around.
yeah. And then finally, Relentless Assault. So this is one I do actually quite like as well, which is in your movement phase after a unit from your army, so specifically has fallen back. Um, until the end of the turn, that unit is eligible to declare a charge, even though it fell back this phase. So I like this as a repositioning, correcting measure where you haven't quite killed a unit, but you've kind of nullified them rather than having to waste a turn and also not benefiting from a combat where you've charged. Having that ability to then trigger that charge effect is really nice, and it
Elephant in
just
the
feels
room,
handy. Yeah,
you can't advance and charge with this detachment. This strat maybe makes up for that. Maybe you can get
yeah,
away with it because being able to fall back and charge with a full melee army is very valuable. It's um, it's
yeah,
just good. Like not being able to shoot as well, so you can't flex it with like a Redemptor Dreadnought or something and get max value out of it. It's a bit of a
yeah,
shame, but making sure that your, for example, jump pack unit that just got tagged by something is going to be able to get out of combat and do what it needs to do is very good.
yeah. Solid.
Perfect. All right. Lists. We could not agree on lists, so we both wrote one. Um,
Yeah.
they're two very different. They diverge pretty quickly, and by that I mean at the characters. So,
Yes.
do you want to give us a run through on your list?
It's obviously a little bit different to where Ed's approached. So I've got a chaplain. He's going to be leading a unit of Death Company Marines, only a unit of 5. The theory is you put the unit of 5 with him and then another unit of 5 in the Rhino, because then they can kind of split off once they've kind of staged in a ruin. A bit easier to hide them as well. Then I've got the chaplain with the jump pack. He's got the Archangels Shard. I was trying to squeeze in some extra points. I couldn't make my mind up that it probably could be one of the other enhancements realistically, but I liked the idea of him kind of having a bit more punch to him. So if there was something to kind of just deal with, if there was that situation where anti-chaos comes in, great. But it could easily be switched out for one of the other ones, I think. Probably not the Artisan of War, though. And then the other unit of Death Company Marines with jump packs are led by Lamatis. The theory behind that is he makes them -1 damage, so they're like a better version of what Deathwing Knights have become. Plus, they're rerolling to hit. They've got lethal hits, so you can, if you're really feeling kind of spicy, you can just fish and reroll everything that isn't 6s, and sometimes that can work. It's really quite cool. Speaking of things that are really cool, if your opponent decides they're going to charge one of your units, you go, oh, I don't like this. This doesn't feel very fair. They're probably going to kill those Death Company they've just charged. And I don't have the CP to fight on death. You just go, oh, look, I've got a Sanguinius sat in Deep Strike. He's now in your engagement range and he has fight first. There's times where that's really, really quite fun. It can be quite catastrophic, but equally, it can be a bit of a wet fish, depending on the matchup. But for 140 points, I like having him in there because it's a little deep striking guy that drops down and just murders. And it's surprising what he can churn out sometimes.
I think he's legitimately the best Blood Angels character. That's a hot take, but in my that's
Mm,
the main reason in my eyes to
yeah,
go pure Blood Angels instead of Flesh Terrors.
yeah, yeah. And then I've got 2 Assault Intercessors with jump pack units. The theory behind that is if you're playing tactical, having those guys to just throw around, throw some grenades, just be disruptive. And I found often people look at them and go, right, they're your scoring units. I'm going to kill them. At the same time, you've got Death Company Marines just being shoved down their throat, and they go, I've made a mistake. Speaking of mistakes, Ed doesn't like these guys, but I've got 2 Ballistas Dreadnoughts. So the theory behind this as well is you're not relying on your Oath of Moment target. So say your jump pack guys are not going to charge this turn, but say you're going into someone and they've got transports. Crack it open with some re-rolling las cannons. Perfect. You crack it open. Their guys are there. Maybe they've had to come a little bit closer when they get out, make that charge a bit shorter. It's just nice to have some long range shooting when you're essentially going to be 6-inch shots and punching people to death. Then obviously we're touching back on the Death Company guys that you've already talked about. I've then got a unit of 3 Eradicators. These guys can either be really good in a game or can be really bad. I find them very much a swingy thing that sometimes you can have a real good game where all the re-rolling really goes off, you kill a big vehicle, you're really happy, or a game where nothing happens. But for 95 points, it's not bad. They can even just be used as action monkeys if you need it. It's not the end of the world. And then we've got 2 units of scouts because there's times where you need to be able to screen. Having someone in the middle right at the beginning of the game to do area denial or teleport homers, it's handy. But if you don't really want to risk your scouts, you could put a Khalid Assassin there, which is what I've done. So I feel like it plays the tactical game very well, whilst also shoving a power fist right up them. What do you think, Ed?
Yeah, no, I think I've gone in as a fairly similar sort of style. I've gone different around the edges. I like something that I like about your list is it is Oath of Moment agnostic. It doesn't really
Yes.
need Oath of Moment. Everything in the list pretty much rerolls to it anyway. So you can deal with multiple small units. I'm expecting to see more of a shift towards the sort of MSU style. Um, with melee being more of a thing, having lots of small units, like if your opponent, if you want to deal with multiple units of, I don't know, Plague Marines or something, you've got more of a chance of doing that when you don't have to lean on Oath of Moment.
Agreed.
All right, my list. I went with Flesh Terrors because I kind of feel like if you're in this detachment, you want some source of advance in charge. The source of advance in charge is Gabriel Seth. Gabriel Seth gives the unit he's attached to advance in charge. So, the way this list is set up is there are in in the Rhino, the singular Rhino, I have Gabriel Seth with 5 Death Company Marines, and I've got a Chaplain with 5 Death Company Marines. The Chaplain's important because if Death Company aren't within 6 inches of a Chaplain, they're OC 0. However,
12.
is it 12 inches? Even better.
Yeah.
So, having one Chaplain between the 2 5-man squads is good. Also, sometimes you just need to kill things, so I don't feel like I need a Chaplain in every squad. Then I've got 2 Jump Pack Chaplains. They go with the 10 brick squads of Death Company Marines. One has got Icon of the Angel, making it so that you can spread out, tag lots of things, make your opponent take desperate escape tests when they fall back. And the other one is just plain, both with the requisite power fists, just squeezing as much damage out of those as possible.
Yummy.
The thing that I've gone a little differently in this list as well is I've gone for a Sanguinary Priest with Jump Pack. So the Sanguinary Priest gives a 5-up Feel No Pain to the unit he's attached with, which is not
Yep.
amazing if you're running him with Death Company who have a 6-up already. But he also gives +1 AP to the attacks of the squad that he's attached to. This is the one time I think you can legitimately run Vanguard Veterans and not feel bad about it. So I've got a 10 brick of Vanguard Veterans. They've got Storm Shields, which means they are fairly tanky. You've got they're all still T42 wounds, but they have a 4 invuln and a 5-up Feel No Pain from the Sanguinary Priest. And then through a combination of the Sang Priest and the Detachment special rule, when they charge, they've got 5 attacks each at Strength 7, AP2, 1 damage, which is not actually a bad blender unit. It's not as much power, output as the Power Fist squads, but it should do a decent chunk of damage, and it's over the threshold. If you want to, put an efficient unit into the Catan, for example, they will do each attack is just as valuable from the Sanguinary Guard as it is from a Death Company. So you can, charge. You're still winning on 5s. They're still on their invuln. It's still 1 damage by the time they've reduced that. So I think they've got a good place for clearing out certain units and being fairly tanky, paired with Visage of Death, meaning that you're reducing the halving the OC of the unit that you go into. This is quite a nice unit, I think, to tie up, for example, a Wraith Brick and just make sure that you're winning that OC fight. Around that, I've just gone for scoring units. 3 units of Assault Intercessors with jump packs. These are great. I really like them, especially in this detachment. They're up to strength 6 on the charge with, a bucket full of attacks and mortal wounds and access to the grenade strat. So they're a flexible scoring unit that also kills more than your opponent will expect. 2 units of scouts because scouts are just good. And then my points were a little. I had 75 points left at the end, so I went with an Assault Intercessor squad. I quite like them in this detachment to either hold a backfield objective or a side objective. Again, they're more punchy than you'd expect them to be. The strength 6, AP 1 damage, a bucket full of attacks from the squad. They get reroll wounds if they're stood on an objective, so they'll kill most skirmishing units that are coming to try and deal with your home objective. And then again, the Calidus Assassin, just very good in this detachment. You're trying to put a lot of pressure on your opponent. They're not going to be able to screen out a 32 mil base, everywhere that they need to screen out. It's just a good tool to put more pressure on and to, try and hit your opponent's CP where it hurts as well. All right, any thoughts on this one?
I like it. It makes me go, I just wish there was a few more points in a list where you could squeeze in more of this stuff. Because it's like, you go, oh, I like the Vanguard Vets, but what do I take out? And then it's like, it becomes this game where it's like, you're never quite happy with the list. And I like that that's a thing, that there's not just like, it's a solved thing. I've been looking at a lot of Blood Angel lists in the last couple of days, and they're all quite different still. There's a lot of jump pack guys, there's a lot of Death Company, but you see things like Bold Predators even, because
yes, they do look good.
They gain assault if they're shooting into infantry, which is really quite nice. So there's lots
Very
of different
specific,
choices.
but that's probably what you wanted to shoot them at anyway, so it's okay.
Yeah, it's like big flamestorm cannons, which is just like, it's brilliant. So I look at it and go, there's all these different tools that we could put into these lists, but at the same time, I think I like our themes. I like jump packs.
Contrary to your opinion, I actually like how much stuff you can fit in a list. When I was writing it, I was like, wow, I've got 40.
You get a lot.
40 Marines that want to be in combat, and then I've got 30 Marines that want to be scoring, and I've got a Calidus Assassin, and I've got characters, and I've got a Rhino.
Great.
It feels like I've got just like as much punchy stuff as I want, which is solid. I'm a little concerned about transports with this list, but I'm running 30 Inferno pistols. How bad could it be?
You can always put some in Deep Strike, and then Rapid Ingress them in, right?
Rapid Ingress is great. All right. Thanks for watching. This has been the impromptu Blood Angels index. I've enjoyed this one. I think Blood Angels are probably my favorite marine detachment or like chapter at the moment to build lists around.
Yeah,
They have a lot of tools, and with Dark Angels losing some tools, they're in an interesting spot. Moving on to next week, it looks like we will still be putting up a poll, see what you fancy. It looked like, what did we have in second place this time round? Do you remember?
it was more Necrons, I think.
Well, we'll put another poll up this weekend. If you do fancy seeing something specific, make sure to vote in that one, and we will see you next week. Thanks for watching.